What's up everybody? So today I'm going to be starting on my engine lift kit on the EF project. It's fairly simple when you think about it, especially on these Hondas. Most of it, especially on the rear mount, is just spacers with longer bolts. There's some welding and fabricating you have to do on these EFs. The EK is by far probably the easiest to do an engine lift to. However, most of this is going to be pretty straightforward, and it's stuff that I was probably going to have to do anyways, only because I'm doing the hydro trans, because I'm trying to keep this low buck, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, provided it all works in the end. You know how it goes. It's all that matters. So let's get to it. Okay, so with the rear mount in place, I feel really good about that. I did have to do some stretching of the metal, so I used an air hammer. Basically all it does is it stretches the metal and reforms everything without causing too much damage. Be super easy to fix, but that's what it's looking like. Like I said, very minimal damage to the firewall. No tears or rips at all in the sheet metal. That's the spacers. It's a 2-inch spacing. And basically, like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a piece of steel of some sort, put in here, and just weld that up. Again, it's not necessary, but it will make putting this in, you know, taking it out a lot easier in the long run. Especially, I get this engine in here, it's definitely not going to stay. I got to pull it back out. One, I like to clean everything up on the firewall, do away with anything that I'm not going to need, stuff like that. Paint everything up when it's done, just get it looking nice and pretty under there. So I suppose after that step, after I get that welded, it'd be time to build this up higher. That's almost about 2 inches right there. So if that's the case, I may have to end up drilling into here, doing some kind of modifying, maybe even chop this down. But I want my 2-inch spacing all the way across the board. Now again, that mount right there, I'm saving for last. That's going to be the tricky one because this is going to be a hydro trans in a cable car. So I do believe I may have to end up moving that. If that's the case, again, not a big deal, but this is definitely going to save on oil pans. With a lot of the D-Series, the older D-Series, your oil pans were steel. Therefore, they could take a little bit of abuse. I wouldn't suggest it by no means, but you smack something, it dents, whatever, you know. However, the D16 Y8 and Y7s had cast aluminum oil pans. You hit something just right, it's just going to bust a big hole in it, and that's no good for nobody. That's a really good example of the cast aluminum oil pan I keep telling you about. Again, this is the D16 Y8, and the Y8s and the Y7s have those aluminum oil pans like that. That's just, you don't want to hit nothing with any of that. Now right here I have the T-mount transmission T-mount from out of the EK. I do believe I am going to have to end up running the one from the EF because everything sits slightly different in an EK. And if that's the case, it's not a big deal. I've got plenty of those. There it is. Got my hole drilled all the way through. That's 2 inches. Put the 2 inches up. If it looks a little off-centered, it may very well be. Not gonna lie, but there is some wiggle room on these engines, at least that much, so I'm not too worried about it. However, I'm about to clean my holes up, deburr them. Probably gonna put some plate steel in here. I think I looked up and I got just enough mount body, you know, this being the EF, I've got just enough to play with. Probably have to do away with this little piece right here. It's kind of like a gusset, I guess you would call it. These engine mount bolts are long enough. I'm not worried about it being, you know, too short. Even if that was the case, I can always find bolts, but the important thing is there she is, and it's almost ready for the next step of this phase. So let's get to it. plates. I'm gonna weld them up. Probably build me a gusset slash, I don't know, something to kind of connect them to, weld that up as well. Yeah.
So I don't know which white car.
hate to admit it, but I about run out of time for tonight. Unfortunately, that's how things go sometimes. You know, when you're working a full-time job and you got an actual life to live, you know, kind of stuff like that. However, I did get pretty far along on this. I didn't have to come up as far as I thought with the metal, but I did want to come up that little bit because I was right there on the edge with that 2-inch. I was right there on the edge of that factory mount. Basically, what I'm going to be doing in the next installment of this, I will be getting everything mounted up. I'll be trying to bring the engine over, get it dropped in, be finding out where that trans mount's got to go. I know I'm gonna have to end up cutting the stock one off, but you know, whatever. I'm trying to keep this low buck as possible. I'm not going to buy no like special mount kit just to put this in this car when I know that 3 of the mounts are going to work just fine. Until next time, that's all I got for tonight. Tomorrow I'll be working on it some more.